Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Ray Show. I'm out in the torch shop gonna make another marble. I've been thinking up some ideas. They're all kind of in the dream world. Let's see if we can get them into the real world. I've got some various prep things that I've done kind of ahead of time. I did record them, so I'll try and throw some little flashback segues in this video to when I was making some of these, well, one element anyway. So we're going to start out getting our main construction glass rod. This is a 19mm rod I've been working with. And then I've got some tool that I haven't used for a long time. This is a mashing tool that comes from the bead making days. Never used it much then either. It's kind of a big clunky tool. But the nice thing about this is it squishes down, oh, I don't know, it's maybe quarter-inch or so, where the plates are pretty much parallel. So this initial shaping I'm going to do, a lot of times I do it for the marver or the graphite pads or whatever and get kind of a tapered, or I've got another mashing tool that I tend to use because I like the taper it gives. I like this because it doesn't taper. And I'm going to try something that's a little different. than anything I've done in the past. And down here on the graphite block, boy, that's hot. On the graphite pad here is some silver filings. I'll do this on a piece of paper. So I want to start out with a flattened end, flat lollipop. Okay, that's all that squishy tool does. So I'm going to heat up my lollipop. Pretty hot and actually kind of droopy because I need to lay it down here on this silver to pick these particles up. It needs to just kind of lay down. I'll give it a little press with the marver tool. And I've picked up a whole bunch of little silver specks. the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trap that silver. And I'm going to do that with 3 bands that don't touch each other. Like so. Yeah, before I get going any further, I'm going to try and clean up my silver here. I've got a piece of paper that I did my filing on initially. I'm not sure how hot that plate got, but knock that silver off. Because I'm going to need that plate in a minute for another step with some frit. So now I've got this little bit of silver. I'm going to go set this aside where I can keep it. Now I got to get this torch going and back in the fire before things cool off too much. Now from this point, I'm going to do a couple of shape manipulations. And this is the part that I had in my head. I think I know how to do this. See how this works. This is going to try and condense this all back onto the rod here. I've got a handle on here so it's not flopping around quite so much. Oops. Now that silver is going to do some crazy stuff between the part that's exposed and the parts that are covered up. So this is a lot of transformation going on here in a fairly crude fashion. It's not quite behaving the way I had it in my head. Maybe not a whole lot of adjustment I can do at this point, but trying to get this back to a round, and then to a cone, and then to a triangle. So it's going to take a couple steps to get there. So we're starting to coax this back to a starting point. And we're going to start spinning this. Alright, let's get this to settle down for a minute here and get our bearings. Using a little bit of force here to manipulate this glass. Generally don't want to use very much pushing and pulling on glass when you're working it. It should be hot enough to just move easily. Alright, we've got, well, let's see, I'll heal up this shoulder here before I go to the next phase. Okay, let just settle down for a minute. Well, we're already quite a ways off from what was in my head. You know, the dream world doesn't always come out to reality when you wake up. So on some of these ideas, I try and write down notes. So I've got something in my head to work with. So the next phase is going to be converting this into a triangular base. Kind of get it started and then reinforce it. Oh shoot, I don't think I did a very good job of trying to get this triangle started. We'll get there. There we go. Got my marble pretty hot there. Alright. Poor marble. Now we are going to set down, turn that off so I don't singe myself. Set down some black frit. Trying to spread this out a little. Well, that doesn't spread very easy. Okay, I want black frit just on these edges. Like so. Oops, turn this off again and do a little cleanup again. Okay, get our stuff organized here. Try and heat this frit in so it's pretty well incorporated. Okay. Now I'm going to put down a little clear stripe on top of that frit. Don't need to cover it all, just give some dimension here, some spacing off of the ultimate background. And let this melt in a little bit. Oops, that's not good. Kind of boiled up a little piece there. I got a little too aggressive here. Okay, now what's going to happen? I'm going to do some fume effects. I'm going to start out on the lower side of this, towards the pointy end. Flame is not quite doing it, a little too crazy a flame. That's better. And that's going to be followed up with a little silver fume. That a little bit. And then I'm going to do just a little trail of dots. And I do mean a little trail. So this is kind of an experiment in a little bit, maybe more. Okay, now most of that fume is going to burn off. All we wanted was those little dots with fume. And now we're going to transform back to a cone. So some of these dimensional transformations, such as this one, are ways to manipulate the glass in ways that you can't do. You know, it's what makes glass really cool to me as a medium, because it allows you to do certain manipulations that you just can't do with clay or oil paints or... I know I've seen certain things in polymer clay that become quite similar to glass, like Marinis and certain aspects of building up patterns and stretching them out, but some of the, and maybe some folding, but certain manipulations, I don't know. I think glass is the only way you're going to get there. So as we heat this up, we're just kind of breaking down. The glass wants to round out, so it's going to kind of break down these harsh edges and shape. And we should be able to get back to a cone. And the other nice thing with this is, like, I actually want this to twist a little bit, so it makes it easier. We do kind of get into the final stages of trying to manipulate this a little bit. I don't mind if it continues to transform with some twist. All these manipulations are kind of harsh in this back angle, back part of the rod, where it's interfacing with the hot zone that I'm working on. The glass is going to get a little stressed. Okay, what's the next manipulation? Well, we're going to add some frit onto the background. So that we are going to do a full covering, and I've chose some turbo amethyst. I want it dark, but not if it shows just a little touch of color, that'll be good. So now we get to this point where we have to heat that surface to pick up the frit. We kind of get the angle of that cone is perpendicular to the flame tends to heat the tip more than the wider end. So I need to make sure I get some good heat going on that thick side. That first roll basically picks up the frit, and I just keep kind of rolling it in there to sort of settle it in. And the very tip didn't pick up much. Get a little bit more in there. Okay, put this away. I had a lot of pieces and parts on this one. And I had another component that I didn't even put in here, which I kind of forgot. I'll use that on another project. So again, I like to have this become sort of this open lattice. Let that frit melt on its own, and it'll kind of bead up and leave open spaces. Okay, let this set up for a minute. So I'm going to do silver fume next, and I've got this cobalt to put in the background. That'll give a reflective, kind of shiny background, but it'll also be basically white. So it'll contrast with that turbo amethyst frit that I just put on there. And when we do this kind of effect, I want some silver on there. This can be pretty heavy silver. And we're just going to spiral on our cobalt to make a backing layer. Well, it's part of the process is to kind of run some experiments here, and I got ahead of myself and didn't even add an element that I worked on to make before I started into this marble video. And that initial buildup of the silver filings did not get the idea really that was in my head to do that. So I'll have to revisit that, see if I can make a marble that's closer to what I had thought of. But this will give me a good idea of what that silver filing effect will do. Okay, come back around here for another pass. Okay. Just kind of adding some more on here randomly. It's a pretty thin layer. Okay. So the black frit that I did in the 3 edges, I was kind of hoping to make that kind of be some clouds, some dark zones, a little bit floating. Cut that front lens edge in a little before we go to our next phase. And before we put down our filler clear on the back, I'm going to put down hopefully some more gold fume onto this cobalt. I have the same thing that's a little too hot in the flame. The fuming flame is really picky. All right. Making progress now. So you can see that golden hue to that whole area that I've encased now. Get this edge good and hot, and then we're going to roll that over. And back to the pointy end. And we keep that tip is open. We want to make sure we kind of push it back and don't let that collapse. Now when we come back in here to the clear on clear, we can heat that base glass, get this to really flow. Not worried about penetrating heat messing up the fume layer or the other pattern layers. This one will be like lots of sparkles and shiny in the end, I hope. Okay. Well, sure hope you guys are all doing well, taking care of yourself. Being good kids out there. There's lots going on these days, that's for sure, but try and find some space in your day to be chill. See that end of the marble and a little bright spot on the very point. That should be good enough to get our backing color stringers on there and some feathered colors. Start with some butterscotch. Nice soft glowing glass. Okay, and then we have some good old sparkling blue Unobtaniom. And last but not least, some double amber purple. Alright, now I gotta cook those colors in. Especially that amber purple needs to really be cooked in. Seems like you gotta get this ridiculously hot to get that haze to burn out. But there we go. You can wait until it stops actively drooping. You don't want to wait too long. I let the viscosity guide me in this process. It is drooping way off center. feels kind of thin and runny. You need to move faster, move out away from the torch a little bit. It's getting thick and it doesn't seem to want to be flowing. You gotta just slow down and get it hotter. Okay, I'm a little off center here. Kind of push that tail end in and kind of bring that shoulder up, trying to preserve that point at the very end. And sharpening the pencil there. Okay, once again, we need to get this stable. It's hard to work with when it's just all wiggly wobbly. That's what we refer to as controlled chaos. Okay, start trying to condense this front lens. Get going, just focused on the shoulder there. And burn out some fume that spills over. And minimize how much glass is trapped. This is a phase where you tend to get a optical line or two, or maybe a whole bunch of them in the lens if you look crossways on it. You've got all these bits of glass that have been through a lot of bending and stressing and heat cycles and fuming, and so that's why I go through and try and skim off some glass here at the end, but there's just a lot of deeper layers of glass that are affected in this process. I can't get them all out. at this stage, we're kind of pushing that circumference out, get to this kind of acorn shape. Focus a little bit more just on feeding the clear glass rod in there and building up bulk of the lens. You're going to give it that pause and sort of shift focus so you're not, at this point I'm not trying to throw a bunch of heat into the marble itself, just trying to build up this clear. Okay, we're getting towards a good amount of clear. So trying to roll that on the corner there and we create a trying to chill down the feed rod and keep the marble side hot. So we're focusing the heat on the marble side. And we can pull this out. Pull just a little bit. So it's thinner. I'm going to cut through that a lot easier. Okay, come back here and rip off the edge. Get this really hot doing this. You don't really want to be yanking on that puntey very much. But you do want to gouge out a good bit of glass. And we get back to the beginning, and now we've got to feather that pull that tail, kind of tuck that in. think that's got it on there pretty good. A little toasty. So those fumed little bitty dots that I did, hopefully kind of a gradient, gold to silver. I'm curious if those will show up. Those may be a pretty minor feature in there. I hope they show up. Okay. Who made this marble so big? This is crazy. Kind of moving fast through spongy swap because this is getting large. Trying to keep some heat base going. really need the heat to soak into the core to get this to transform without distorting and messing things up too much. It just takes a little bit of patience. I was using quite a bit of force there at that last point at the marble, and then you get kind of this apple shape where I push the front lens in a little bit. So I'm letting it hang in the fire and let it draw out a little bit. Come back here to the rotations. Some pretty good heat base now. Once you get to a pretty generalized shape is pretty decent. As soon as you get there, now you don't want all that heat in the core. You want to get rid of that heat. So that's part of what's going on here, just running it in the marble mode and dissipating some heat. I'm actually watching some reflections on that edge that pulled together pretty good. So now when we come back into the fire, we're mostly working on just fire polishing this backside. Looking at the reflections, seeing if it seemed like it was running pretty smooth. So try and get this surface pretty amped up in temperature. And I'm really not interested in heating the core, so we get out of the heat. Okay, well, some of the ideas I had going on in this marble I think turned out well. This is kind of stable. I'll do another punty transfer and finish up on the lens. And we're just about done. It's my ventilation system going bunk. And I've got to really clean out any remnants of that puntee and anything going on that end. That all disappeared. So again, this lens shaping, I can tell it's out of shape, but I don't want to go for too much crazy heat. Do this in maybe a couple steps. And gently into the marble mold and then bring it up. Cleaned up the shape pretty well. Do that again. Wait a minute for it to kind of skin over. Try and keep that rotation going the same direction as you're coming into the marble mold. Now the mold has done all it can do. Now it's just a matter of heat, rotation, or gravity. I think that should be it. I just gotta wait for it to settle down so we can knock it loose, polish the end, get in the kiln, and get on with their day. Thank you so much for anybody that's hanging out, watching these videos. We appreciate you all more than you know. It means a lot to me to have people watching this silliness. Watching for that glow to, after bearing, you put the marble underneath your bench in the shadow and see how glowing hot it is. But if you drop it there, that would not be good. Okay. Some water there to chill that puntee, even though it's kind of a cold seal. I like to use some water on there to knock it loose clean. Hopefully it doesn't always come off super clean. This one did. And this step seems really simple, just heating it up and letting it smooth out, but I've actually found that if that torch is really cranking, a lot of force coming out of that torch, you'll actually you'll make a wave and push the glass instead of just smoothing it over. You want to be aware of that. So watch that little reflection, looking good. Awesome. Well, I wish I had put this other element. I had this one other piece I was going to put in there. Another day, apparently. So that is our awesome marble for today. Plop goes into the kiln. I've got a ceramic wool blanket in the bottom of the kiln, so it's not going right onto kiln brick or anything. It's going onto a fairly soft material. Anyway, thanks so much for hanging out. Be good, be kind to yourself, be kind to those around you, and we will see you on another episode of our adventures in marble making another day. Take care, everybody.